Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken. Hey, Seattle hockey fans, Erica Lindsay Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken, and we have another very special squadcast for you. You've heard from him before, the one, the only host of Locked On Devils, Trey Matthews.
What's up? How you doing, Erica?
It's good to see you again, brother. How you been?
Oh, where do I start? I don't know where to begin. It's been one interesting journey, to say the least.
Oh, I bet. We love it. So last time fans over on Locked On Kraken heard from you, you were getting ready to call a PHF preseason game. And we're doing that. But since, and I've talked about this on the show, you have been able to shadow your mentor, our very own radio voice of the Seattle Kraken, Everett Fitzhugh. So since you don't know where to start, why don't I determine that we'll start from there. What was it like to meet up in real life and to follow Everett Fitzhugh as he was calling a radio game for the Seattle Kraken?
Oh man, it was a once in a lifetime experience. I can't explain it. Just overall, he's a great guy. He was very personable. He answered all my questions, and when he answered a question, it was in great detail. I got to meet a lot of people. I met JT Brown. He does the color commentary for the Seattle Kraken. Met the whole squad over at the radio station, the television station that covers the Seattle Kraken as well. Just going behind the scenes and just going to morning skate, talking to the head coach, seeing Everett get interviewed by a various amount of news sources, just because it was a big deal, because he is a Detroit native and he is the first African-American NHL broadcaster. So that was certainly a big deal. But just getting to learn from him behind the scenes and just see like how I can take what he does into my very own broadcast, or just seeing how he preps for a game. And just overall, it was a great experience, and something I hope to do again in the future, maybe one day.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems like it was awesome. You had a front row seat to get to see everything. So, Trey, what were some of the...
Technically not first row, but because, the press box is high up, but I get what you mean.
Yes, fair enough. But yes, the theoretical front row seat. But okay, so Trey, you've prepared for hockey games before. This is something that you want to do. We talked about the PHF pregame or preseason game, excuse me. What were some of the things that you thought were kind of in pace with what you have experienced so far in your hockey journey? And maybe what were some of the things that were a little bit different and that were an adjustment as you got to see what an NHL preparation is like?
Okay, so the one thing I have to say is, like, when you're looking at the NHL preparation for something like that, it's just like they go into such great detail. Like, I remember just looking at one of their note pamphlets, albeit they didn't type this out, they didn't write it out. Someone else does it, but it was very thick. It was like it was almost like a short story kind of thing. Like it was definitely a few inches thick, and just going into detail, I'm like, whoa, they have stats for the other team. They have different stories. Oh, this player is going to be playing in his 100th career game after today, or going into this game, this player is so and so against the Detroit Red Wings, because that's who they were playing at Little Caesars Arena. And just the great detail. It was just all to a T. It was very meticulous. And something that surprised me is that they use some of the sources that I use, like whether I'm doing a podcast, whether I'm doing broadcasting, they use like Hockey Reference. They use the typical websites that we as fans use to get information about a certain player. So I think something interesting they found out was that I believe Drieger was the starting goalie for the Kraken that game against the Red Wings. They were able to, I forget who was in goalie for the Detroit Red Wings, but they were able to find some sort of information that they were teammates at one point when they were younger, up and coming, and I'm just like, that is great detail, and I'm just like, I'm just in disbelief. And it's not as complex and different as some people may interpret it, because it's just like they use the same sites that we use. They just use it in great detail. They have a printer on site, so if they have to adjust their notes, if they have to, if someone's a healthy scratch, or if the lines got changed at the very last second, they can literally just go onto a computer, type it up, and just say, change real quick, change that real quick, and they print it on site.
Wow, that's really cool. I mean, because as you know, again, the note taking and then the research, as you said, it can be pretty daunting. And so, first of all, it's kind of cool to have people like a team of stats people, right, kind of helping out with that and not having to do it all on your own. But also, changes on the fly are such a thing. I know even just from my experience with the Premier Hockey Federation, sometimes, we're texting people who are in the arena because we do a remote broadcast. So we don't even, always have runners right there. Sometimes we have to be texting people and whatnot. So it can definitely be a tedious process, but I love that you were able to kind of get that preparation. So Trey, what are some of the things that you took away from the experience and that you think you might try and integrate into your just kind of day-to-day, whether it's preparing for the podcast or preparing to call a game?
Okay, so the first thing that should be established was that I treated it like a business trip. So like one of my friends asked me if she could come, and I told her no, love you and all, but this is a business trip. So I'm all about business. I didn't know what to wear. My dad said wear a suit. You don't have to wear a tie or things of that nature. Everyone told me wear a tie. Like he told me the dress attire for morning skate. He told me the dress attire for the game. He said full on suit. However, for morning skate, you could be business casual, things of that nature. So it's just like something that I will take away from is that, if you want to be surrounded by like big name personalities or things of that nature, you got to get used to it. And this is something I learned from David Luck as well, who's the founder of this podcast. Because, I'm a big basketball fan. Like if I was to see LeBron James, like coming down the hallways, I would kind of broadcast the rules and just ask for an autograph, ask for a picture, things of that nature. I asked David like a little over a year ago, like, have you ever been starstruck by a player? He's like, nah, I don't get starstruck. If I was to get starstruck, it would be by another broadcaster that I looked up to. I don't really get starstruck or things of that nature. And that's sort of one of the takeaways I took going into that, which was treat it like a business trip. Do not ask for autographs. Do not ask for selfies. Like, let me tell you something. I was in the same press box as Matt Beniers because this was in Detroit. Matt Beniers goes to school at the University of Michigan, same college as Luke Hughes, our pick from this past year's NHL draft. So I literally could have just said, hey, Matt, can I just take a selfie with you real quick? It took every fiber in my body to not ask for a picture with them, just because it would be really cool, because who knows, Matt Beniers could become like the next big thing in hockey, as far as I know. And he's the first draft pick in Seattle Kraken history. So I really did want to take a selfie with him. I really did want to ask for maybe an autograph or something like that. But I just said, nope, it is a business trip. You treat it like a business trip. And if you want to get used to it, you got to know, like, you can't just be asking for autographs. You can't be asking for pictures, because I actually did meet Dave Haxtell, the head coach for the Seattle Kraken. I shook his hand. I had a conversation with him. Very serious guy. I don't know how he would react if I said, can I have an autograph? Can I have a picture? I don't even know how Everett would react. But I just said, no autographs, no pictures. And something that taught me was like, they said like, treat every game like it's a big game. So, for example, I told them one of the hardest things to do was to call ACHA men's D3 or ACHA women's D2, because out of our 7 hockey programs at Adrian College, the college I attend and in which I do broadcasting for, they don't get fans in the arena. They don't really get that much of a viewership. It's very hard to get exciting for, and usually they just blow out the opponent, the opponent anyway. So it's kind of hard to call that. I'm sure you've had that experience before, but they said you treat that game like you were calling the NCAA programs at Adrian College. You take your notes, you try everything you in your power to treat them the same and make it entertaining. And if it's a blowout, that just tests you more as an announcer because you got to find a way to make it entertaining, even though it's a blowout. Because I told them one time, one of the toughest games I had to call was when Adrian College beat a team 14-0. 14-0. That's not a hockey score. That's a football score. So that's some of the takeaways. I could go on for hours, but that's just some of the big takeaways I learned.
Wow, yeah, for sure. I mean, all of that is really good advice. Just being a professional, they always say the adage is, dress for the job you want and stuff like that. So it seems like you're really able to kind of bring some of those things and hone those things and apply some of those things. So that's pretty cool. But Trey, coming up next, we're gonna flip the script a little bit, and you're gonna put me in the hot seat, and we'll talk a little bit about my experiences so far. But let's take a little break and get the sponsors happy, and then we'll do that. BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, more odds, and more lines than ever before as football, basketball, and of course hockey continues. And we're even got you covered for college bowl season. Remember that BetOnline, even though it has a new website, a new interface, it is still your number one spot for all your sports action this season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, and we don't want you to miss out. So head to your mobile device. You can use a tablet, you can use a desktop, whatever you got, and go to betonline.ag. And when you use promo code Locked On at sign up, you will receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Remember, BetOnline has you covered for all the props and odds and everything that you need from football, basketball, hockey, and even your favorite Vegas casino games. But you're not going to be able to grab those deals unless you sign up at betonline.ag. Use that promo code Locked On for 50% on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Okay, so Erica, we've talked about my experience going behind the scenes of the Seattle Kraken. However, you had the opportunity over the summer to go to their expansion draft. You went to a few of their practices, got to speak to some of the players. And in fact, I'm glad you reminded me of this. I met Allison and Piper. They do the pregame for the Seattle Kraken on television. They told me, "Do you know Erica Ayala?" I was like, "Yeah, I work with her at Locked On." And she's like, and they were like, that is a good connect to have. Try to connect with her. And Everett agreed with me, but because they said that you covered them for Locked On. And I was like, yeah, I work at Locked On. I cover the Devils. I know Erica very well. And and so I was just like, wow, Erica might be a bigger deal than me for right now. But what was your experience of going behind the scenes of the Seattle Kraken? What did you experience?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing that. I had no idea. But yeah, Allison Lucan and I go back to the time when we did a little bit of crossover virtually, of course, covering women's hockey. And Piper, I'm a huge fan of Piper's. I remember her covering Wisconsin and doing some of the work there. And to see that she's with the Seattle Kraken, so awesome. So that's pretty cool. And thanks for sharing that. But my experience was pretty cool. I have never been to an NHL expansion draft before, and I've gone to an entry draft. I did the entry draft in Dallas. Was that 2017 or 2018? That was the year Keandre Miller got drafted to the Rangers. So, but the expansion draft was really cool. So it was at this place in Seattle. Anyone who watches Grey's Anatomy might recognize it, but it's called Gasworks Park. And it was beautiful. Like, it was so beautiful. The water's right there. And it was kind of cool as a baseball fan. You always see when the Giants have home games, you see all of the canoes and boats and stuff and people going out to try and get a home run ball. You had people that were kind of in their different floating devices and were just really excited to welcome the Seattle Kraken to their city. I got to see Everett work from a distance while I was there at the expansion draft, as well as JT, and that was pretty cool. And it was kind of cool just to be able to just see how everything works. It was the first kind of run through for a lot of who you're talking about as far as the broadcast. It was their first live event. They were with NHL Network. And so it was pretty cool. It was also really great as someone who covers the Seattle Kraken remotely to catch up with the beat writers. So, Jeff Baker at the Seattle Times, at the time, Marissa and Jimmy was not working with the Seattle Times yet, if I recall correctly, or maybe she wasn't in Seattle yet. But then you also had Ryan S. Clark, who I have known for a little bit, just name in passing.
Ryan was another person I met at Little Caesars Arena. Everett told me he covered them for The Athletic.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it was really cool. Ryan and Jeff in particular were the two at the expansion draft that I got to get to know a lot better. And then, of course, Darren Brown, who runs the Sound of Hockey. So that was pretty cool. And getting to be there as the first names ever for franchise history were called.
That's really interesting, and something that Everett told me was that, I wasn't really surprised, but because I kind of already knew this, but he says that the Seattle Kraken, it was their mission to try to diversify their culture. So they have a lot of people of color associated with their organization. Like they got people like you, they got sort of like me, the sort of like the apprentice to Everett Fitzhugh kind of thing, like, because I was able to shadow him. They got a lot of women. That's one thing I love about the Seattle Kraken. They give people a chance to work for such a great organization. They give people, the spotlight in terms of just trying to establish their brand, establish what they're doing. And I just have a lot of respect for the Seattle Kraken. It's just a great team to root for. Not doing too well right now. And Everett told me how to handle, if your team is struggling, find a way to make it entertaining. But one thing I also want to talk about was, didn't you have the chance to go to a couple of their practices over the summer, like training camp?
Yes, for sure. I was there for training camp and preseason. So that was really exciting too. Everything for the Seattle Kraken is brand new, including the Kraken Community Iceplex. At the time, they have a bar there now that was not fully functional. There definitely a lot of people still wearing hard hats all around, and it seems like they finished all the parts where the hockey players would be, but there were still a few things that they were cleaning up. So that was kind of neat to see, and I was like, oh gosh, I hope they get everything done. But as far as being able to be there for the first ever Seattle Kraken practice, official practice, well, I guess not the first, but it was the first one I think that they opened up officially as part of training camp. They had some players only practices and whatnot. But you heard fans, because they allowed some fans to come in, and you heard fans applauding as soon as they hit the ice. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and I told Everett one of my goals is to actually get out to Seattle and actually watch a game. Next time you go, can I come with you?
Yeah, I'll pack you in my suitcase. But
everybody, that's illegal. Do not try it. Trust me, that's illegal. Do not try it.
Oh, I'd have no experience, but I'll take your word for it. But I'm set to head out to Seattle. We'll see what happens with the Olympics, but I'm set to head out to Beijing, China first, and then probably in April. Definitely by April, but maybe as soon as March, I'll be headed back out.
Oh man, you get to go to Beijing to cover the hockey?
Yeah, I'll be covering both hockey tournaments and a few other things as well.
Oh man, how do I get Allison and Piper were right. I do need to have you as a good connect. Yeah, so basically, that's awesome, Erica. But one of the things I want to wrap up on is I think the Devils and the Kraken kind of have a little bit of a rivalry, just a little bit, not much, because you guys are obviously a new established team. We don't play you guys often. The next time we play you is not going to be until late 2022 in April, I believe. So I'm just referring back to the Lawson hit on Jack Hughes, in which Jack Hughes had to miss significant time due to that shoulder injury. And then you got Gearston looking for retaliation the next period. And honestly, because of you guys, that's the reason why Gearston still has a job with the Devils, just because I guess they were impressed that he stood up for Jack Hughes in that case. And we don't play you guys often, but do you think there's a little bit of a rivalry brewing between the Kraken and the Devils?
To be honest, I think the most Kraken fans might say is that Bastion went back. we dropped him, and then he went.
Oh yeah. Thank you for giving us Bastion back. Now he can give us the energy for our bottom six. So even though you guys didn't appreciate him, we love him.
You did. You definitely did. So we'll see. I know some people are questioning how asset control for the Seattle Kraken. We had a few players that we put on waivers going right back to the team we got them from. But that's the nature of the beast. So I don't know. I don't know if respectfully, I think the Seattle Kraken have plenty of things they need to sort out, and I'm not sure that a rivalry with the Devils is definitely piping hot. But speaking of the Devils, actually, you reminded me that I am set to be in town for the Kraken game when they play the Devils. So if you're coming on out to Seattle, that might be the time to do it.
I will book a flight, I will book a hotel, and I will do whatever it takes to get into Climate Pledge Arena to cover that game. I will do whatever it takes. Thank you for telling me that.
You heard
I will pack my bags.
Folks.
I got you. But hopefully the Devils are doing better at around that time, because right now we suck.
Yeah, well, Kraken not doing so great either, Trey. We both our teams have some work to do after we come out of this holiday break. But actually, that's what we're going to get into next. How are our teams doing, and what do we project or predict will happen in 2022? Given that we are hosts of our respective podcasts, which that we knew a little bit more, but traditional fantasy sports are a long-term losing proposition. That's why StatHero shows you their lineup before you play, and you get to hand pick your roster so it is a true head-to-head against the house. That's right. StatHero reveals their roster and dares you to beat them. StatHero head-to-head is what daily fantasy should be, one-on-one. So sign up right now at stathero.com/hockey and use promo code hockey for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/hockey, promo code hockey for a 100% match. stathero.com/hockey, promo code hockey. Terms and conditions will apply. All right, Trey. So we kind of alluded to this just a little while ago. One, is there a rivalry between the Seattle Kraken and the New Jersey Devils? If you're watching from Locked On Devils, if you're watching from Locked On Kraken, let us know. If you're watching on YouTube, in the comments. But if you're listening, hit us up on social media. Let us know. Do you think the rivalry is real? Because one way or another, we're going to find out come April. But right now, the Seattle Kraken sitting at 10-17-3, have a lot of work to do if my bold prediction is going to come through. As far as how we're doing in the conference, we're dead last in the Pacific Division of course, the Western Conference. And, things aren't going to get easier. And that's why I had said my prediction was if the Kraken want to be a viable team right out the gate, they have to do it in this first season, because people clown on the Pacific Division. But here's the thing. In the last handful of drafts, it's been Pacific Division teams that have had top picks. So ultimately and eventually, at least theoretically, those top picks should be able to just, come out guns blazing and then turn the tide of what the Pacific Division looks like. And the Kraken, if they can't catch up now, they're likely going to fall behind. But that's what's going on with Seattle. Trey, what about the Devils? What you got going on?
For the past few episodes, I've been doing a Devils pity party with fellow Devil podcasters, writers, because the Devils are not in a good place right now. We're on a 6-game losing streak. There's rumors saying that we might move on from Lindy Ruff. However, Tom Fitzgerald's comments to the media says otherwise. The Devils right now, we are second to last in the Metropolitan Division. The Islanders aren't trailing that far back. They're only 3 points behind us. So I'm just hoping that we can figure it out before we fall to dead last. We're still in it theoretically because the Metropolitan Division, well, we're not really that good this year. Like, you got the Hurricanes, you got the Capitals, you got the Rangers, and then the Penguins seem to be figuring things out because they're on a 7-game win streak. But other than that, like the Flyers, Blue Jackets, we're 4 points behind both those respective teams despite struggles. So theoretically, we could finish in a respectable position.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Seattle Kraken, one of their things is inconsistency. It's not that, they just can't seem to keep it together. And everyone deals with injuries. Obviously, unfortunately, everyone's dealing with COVID protocol, players in and out. But at some time, you just got to buckle down. So, all right, Trey, I'll give this to you as we wrap up, and we can both do this. But what are two things that we'd like to see our teams take on as New Year's resolutions for the 2022 portion of the season?
Okay, so for the Devils, one, you need to find an established system because if Lindy Ruff is theoretically fired, then that's going to be the fourth head coach in 2 years for our star player, supposedly Jack Hughes. Or if we fire Lindy Ruff, get an interim head coach, and then get our new established head coach, that's 5 new head coaches for Jack Hughes in just a 2-year span. We've also went from GM to GM. So that doesn't help things either. We need to find an established system and an established identity. And then second of all, play with a purpose. The Devils sometimes play with no purpose. And it just seems like they're going through the motions. And it's frustrating as a fan to watch because if I'm being honest with you, if I was just a regular fan and I'm seeing the Devils playing like that, I'd turn the game off, quite honestly, because it's just that hard to watch. They are so lucky I have to do my podcast, because otherwise I just be turning it off because I can't watch this play any longer. So they need to find a new identity and an established one for a long period of time, and then 2, play with the purpose.
I like those. Similar to what I would say for the Seattle Kraken. One thing that I'd like to see, and I'll get a little more technical here, but I'd like to see more time with Drieger in the net. I think that what Drieger's issue has been is that he has not been healthy. But Chris Drieger, I think, has earned more of the starts. And honestly, Philip Grubauer has not been very consistent for this Seattle Kraken team. And I get the sense that maybe he's just not comfortable. But something is definitely amiss with Philip Grubauer. So if Drieger can be healthy, I think he's earned a few starts. The other thing that I would say is find your 60-minute style. The Seattle Kraken are very inconsistent. They've been consistent throughout the schedule, but even within the game. And I think we've had times where we've seen the Seattle Kraken put together a pretty good 40, maybe 45-minute game. But I think I could only point to 1 or 2 times where I thought they had a good 60-minute game. And that, I don't know if that's an endurance issue. I don't know if that's just that they kind of, they seem kind of absent-minded at times. So they need to buckle down and focus on putting together 60-minute games more consistently.
You're preaching to the freaking choir because we struggle with goaltending and we struggle with our identity too.
Exactly. So whether we're rivals or not, it seems like we definitely have some similarities. So those are our New Year's resolutions. Trey Matthews, the host of Locked On Devils, thanks so much for joining for this crossover, as I like to say, squadcast over here on Locked On Kraken. And I looked up the dates, so I don't know when graduation is, but I do know that the New Jersey Devils are rolling into the depths of Climate Pledge Arena on April 16th. That's a 7 p.m. PT game. So I plan to be there. And you'll probably see that there'll be some Black hockey history focus right around that time in Seattle. I believe that the Black Mobile Museum will be rolling through around that time. So come out to the Emerald City and we'll do this in person.
I got you, Erica. Wait, hang on. Let me see. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out later.
Thank you again for listening to this special squadcast or crossover with Trey Matthews. He talked about his experience meeting some of the fantastic people behind the Seattle Kraken. I truly had no idea that so many people within the Kraken organization had nice things to say about me and to say about Locked On Kraken. But thank you so much. You make this podcast so fun. You make this team so much fun to cover. So from interactions on Twitter, or whether we're talking about YouTube, or even when I get to meet some of you in real life alongside some of the fantastic people covering this hockey team, it has truly been a highlight of my 2021. And speaking of that, we're going to go over a year in review when we get to next week. And don't forget, we have a special guest for our 100th episode that is set to air on Monday. And so it's going to bring, your adult beverages, bring your confetti, bring, your party poppers and everything, because we are definitely going to celebrate 100 episodes of the Locked On Kraken podcast. As I always say, though, I am your host, humbled, honored to be your host of Locked On Kraken. Hold fast, stay true, and let's go Kraken!